Okay.
Welcome. Welcome. Welcome to Pacific Unitarian Universalist Church. We're a beacon of progressive thought on the South Shore. Our church was part of the scene in the second ever James Bond film with Sean Connery. Okay, that's not true, but since hardly anyone ever gets here for the start of the service, I figured I could pretty much say anything until about 10:35 and get away with it. So, more seriously, as historic as we may be, or really aren't, we do work to be a modern community of people of all creeds and races, sexual orientations, gender identities. That is very much true. For those with children, there is some good news. We have religious education programming, so you will get some time alone. That's a joke. Maybe that sounded wrong. I don't know. For those with school-age children, we have religious education programming that begins right after the children's moment, and for younger folks, we have like a nursery that begins, I don't know, about 20 past or so. But in tribute to the hardworking people who built this fine establishment more than 60 years ago without digital anything or social media, I encourage you to turn off your cell phones and get ready soon maybe to greet your neighbor, right? We're almost there. You can look longingly at your people from under your masks. We've got a number of announcements. Melissa's going to come up and tell us about the pledge drive and how we've stolen victory to some degree from the jaws of defeat. Yeah. Okay, good. Turn that on. You got to really turn it on.
It's green. Okay, there it is.
Oh,
yes.
Beautiful.
Okay, so I'm Melissa, the Board of Trustees president, as you might know. And so I've also been in charge of the pledge drive this year for my very first time. And I wanted to let you know, I wanted to thank you, first of all, because as I look at you, I just think of your generosity and your commitment and your support, and it really fills my heart. So thank you so much. As of last, our true pledge goal was to get to $260,000 to fund the 2022-23 church year. And as of last week, we had 185,000. So we were, Vanna, will you please point? Yeah, we were right. We were here. We were here just 7 days ago. We were down there. And I was a little nervous, and but I had some very heroic angels and extra pledgers. And we are now, in 1 week, we've reached 223,000 plus, and I feel like, thank you so much. So I feel like we're going to be okay next year. In fact, I know we're going to be okay next year, and it makes me so happy. So thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of all of our hearts. And I feel like we should all just look at each other and say thank you.
Thank you. Here we are. For anyone who's new, we're going to try to squeeze in a new member Sunday meeting after church out on the patio. If anyone feels like they're inclined to think about membership, we're having a service on May 1st. So we'll have a new member celebration day. So, we're running out of time to get you if you want to become a member, which is great. And then I have a few announcements here that Kelly's going to project up there. We have an exchange on Earth Day, which is Friday, a couple Fridays from now, 6 to 8, we're going to have kind of an exchange, like a gift exchange, a thing you don't want. You can bring stuff to the church that you want to trade and sort of get rid of, kind of a reuse in the spirit of the recycle, reduce, reuse. This is a reuse theme. And that afternoon, from 3 to 5, there's going to be kids' workshops here. So if you have young people who want to be involved with Earth Day or just, do art projects, I think they're going to try to do like recycled art projects. So we have Jewel, right, who's sitting over there, and we're going to have programs for that. And then also, if you're interested in becoming a teacher, or you want to get trained for OWL, there's a lot of people here with their hands up, and I think it's projected there as well. So we could use some teachers. That's a great way to contribute, and I don't think we'll overwhelm you with the ask of what we're asking you to do. But see Jewel around that, and we're going to make sure we create a vibrant RE program for our young ones in particular. So there we are. We're kind of gearing up for OWL and all the, the upcoming events and for the fall and all of that. There's postcards. We've been pretty good at getting thousands of postcards to areas to get out the vote. It's a nonpartisan thing. Kelly's got a couple batches back there, so there's a couple going out that need to go out in the next 2 weeks, and then there's another batch that's going out a few weeks after that. Let's see. Frank Adams, who's not here, has done. Frank and Maureen have been engaged with the Afghan community. There's a group of people staying up near LAX, And we're going to hear a little bit more about them. This week is the writing group coming up, and all that's good. So we remember for a moment that this church stands on colonialized land. It was Tongva land long before we were here, and we stopped to remember that our heritage runs a lot longer than 63 or 4 or 5 years. Okay, I'm going to invite up Darcy, one of the most popular people in the church, to read our chalice words.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
It's a very short sample size.
I dedicate our chalice lighting today to those Christians who serve the marginalized of this world with sacrifice and courage. To the many and the always too few of those followers of Jesus who really live out the daring compassion they see in their hero and or savior. May we, use Christian or not, always see these good people as our brothers and sisters in faith. May the Christians of the world walk through it, listening to Jesus' strong spirit whisper in their ears and be blessed by it. And more importantly, may we here, as always, see each other as teammates.
So as you see, it's Palm Sunday, and in typical UU fashion, I'm preaching a sermon on what Jesus gets wrong. And I thought, and what he gets right as well. UUs are a tough crowd, and being a tough crowd is not only our religious task, it's our specific religious task in a way. We've always said that, the truth shall set you free. Martin Luther King said that. And it's sort of our specialty. We need to combine a kind of certain skepticism. It's kind of what makes us unique on our religious journey. And today the sermon examines what his statements feel and look like 2,000 years later, with the very rarely asked question, what did he get right? What did he seem to get wrong? It's a very obvious question, and I suppose it's sort of heretical, in fact. And I like to think about the fact that Jesus, right about now, 2,000 years ago, was starting his ministry, right? Dies at about 30 in his ministry. It's sort of, he's probably just gearing up, probably not famous yet. And I think that we're going to find out that what's revealed is a man, like all humans are, trapped in their time. And a service, I hope, is a touch informative and heretical and funny, and sort of has a warmth to it as well. So, as one of our logos here at PUC had it as you head towards the preschool, Love Beyond Belief, we're practicing that today. And with that vague instinct in mind, we gather, and I invite you to stay. Maybe we should try standing as you are willing and able and singing our opening hymn today, which is Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. Give it a try. Crawling our way back to normal.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
don't? Ooh, wow, that's loud. Who turned that down? So today is a convergence. Oh, I'm just going to turn this off. That's not working at all.
I'm going to steal this. So we don't have any children here, but I'm going to do a little quick. So this is a weird period of time. There's a ton of holidays that are converging. I don't know if anybody's aware of that. There's Holi is right around the time. Ramadan is now. Diana, stand up. Diana just joined the Interfaith Council with, I'm on the board. Kelly's the administrative person, South Coast Interfaith Council, and she's now our representative or one of them on that board. So thanks to her for doing that. That's right. Good luck. Right. So today is Palm Sunday, which you mostly probably grasp, right? And so Jesus comes in. I'll do it very quickly because I was going to do it for the children's, but they're... So he comes in because it's Passover. Do we know that? Right? Okay. Comes into Jerusalem because it's Passover, which is really sort of the ultimate sort of, old home week reunion. Everybody, it's a big time to go be a celebrity in Jerusalem. And he comes in, and there's a lot of question about whether the Last Supper was a Passover feast or not. That sort of remains kind of enigmatic and unanswered. But when Jesus comes in, palm fronds are thrown to sort of celebrate his arrival and to kind of mark him as an important character. And I was going to talk about, there you can see the image there. And then, of course, they would have eaten unleavened bread during that time because for the Jewish people, they didn't have time the bread to rise. It's symbolic of their haste getting out of Egypt. So all of those things converged together at that time. And this is, it's an interesting week for us. So it's Palm Sunday, and then next week we start the start of Holy Week. It's the end of Lent around this time, and so, well, there's no kids to talk to. You pretty much know this. Who doesn't know this? Anyone not sort of? Yeah, do you want me to say more? Okay, sure. Okay, so Holy Week, Jesus comes in Sunday, presumably. Comes in the next couple days, he flips over causes a ruckus in the temple, and then he sort of gets recognized as a problem for both the Jewish authorities and the Romans. Of course, he sort of got double trouble, and then at the what is maybe that Passover feast on Thursday is thought to be the Last Supper, and famously depicted in the painting, and that, Judas was probably, if the story remains, who knows how much of the story is true, but Judas is preparing to conspire against him. Garden of Gethsemane, Thursday night, Jesus gets arrested. There are different versions of how violent that was and how possibly violent the Christians would have been, but there was a scuffle. A couple people somebody lost a part of their ear. Jesus heals it. And Friday is the oddest named holiday in religious history, right? Good Friday is when Jesus gets killed, and then, so it's a weird, they say 3 days, but it was really Friday night to Sunday morning, really, if you're counting. It's really more of a 48-hour period of time, but then Easter happens, and Jesus, well, they didn't really know what happened. Jesus, it was a number of stories of different people coming to the tomb, and they're, it would sort of cross-examination, that would have been an interesting question as to what happened, but presumably this is when Jesus rise. Well, we know that. So anyway, let's what? Yes, Kelly, you can ask a question.
So you said you didn't know how violent the Christians would have been. Were there Christians at the first Passover?
Well, Jesus' followers, they were not Christians at the time. They would have not have thought of themselves that way. So yes, no. In hindsight, that's how they get labeled historically in hindsight. So we're going to pass on singing out our children. And we're gonna go to what do we go to? We go to Spirit of Life. Yeah, we sing our centering hymn, Spirit of Life. There we go. Thanks.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion.
Okay. We're going to come back to an old-fashioned version of joys and concerns, which is, so I invite people to stand. You can kind of, Leanne's going to guide us to some degree, and we're going to come up and you can grab a candle, and then you can come speak your piece, and you can put the candle in the same.
Whenever you pray. One of the things Jesus is thought to have discouraged is grandstanding prayer. Whenever you pray, he is recorded as saying, "Do not be like hypocrites who love to stand and pray at the street corners so that they might be seen." Whenever you pray, Jesus said, "Go into your room and shut the door." However, public grandstanding is only a problem if you are praying to impress people, and that hardly is our issue here. I have always wondered if Jesus' advice to us UUs might be for us to, when inspired, actually pray publicly, because for us that would be really hard, and so we do, at least today. Broad-minded, non-discriminatory spirit we know and love, spirit we can see alive in selfless love, be with us. Animate our souls collectively with power and good intention, power, good intentions, and love. Breathe compassion into our lives to savor this life we are living. Let's work to be as comfortable expressing our deepest heartfelt wishes in public as we are comfortable doubting where they might be headed. I'm going to read that better. Let's work to be as comfortable expressing our deepest heartfelt wishes in public as we are comfortable doubting where they might be headed. Amen.
I'm going to do half of this piece and half of it later.
Gee, that was pretty, Severin. Gosh. Would you please join me in this short responsive reading? I'm going to be playing the part of the minister, and you'll be playing the part of the people. Is it up there? Yes. Okay. Your scars and fate. Your scars and fate tell an ugly story. But despite that, you were not ashamed of your wounds. And the slow fire of your compassion. Everybody, help us even now to melt the chains of fear and cynicism that binds our hearts and bodies.
Thank you, Darcy. Boy, it's worth preaching just to take your mask off. My God. Sorry for you. Thank you for enduring. Hopefully we'll be out of this soon enough. I said a number of times, I'm a big Jesus fan. I also deeply believe that our relationship is a product of my imagination. Nonetheless, it's an important relationship for me. Jesus matters. I said I like to think of Jesus as the wiser sort of cool kid in the neighborhood that used that cachet sort of to help others and for good. I don't think that's offensive. I hope it's not. But on a whim one day, I was in an act I rarely see discussed, but I always wonder why it's not more. I thought it would be fun to look back from the 21st century and see what Jesus got right and wrong. Like I said, it seems an unanswered question. And then I started to take this. It took me in a couple different responses when I asked myself this question. The first instinct I had was to be sort of protective. I want to defend him from the critics, many of us, including myself, who think, some people who think him irrelevant, and also from his admirers who want to say more about who he was than I think is true. What surprised me was that I got further into the task, I sort of started to kind of rant a little bit. And I sort of imagined myself seated so I feel like I have a pretty healthy relationship with Jesus, and I feel like we would, I would admire him, but we could have a real conversation. And then I sort of wanted to sit in front of him and, sort of critique his dirty robe and his hair. And I trusted Jesus would sort of get that. And then I imagined sort of interrogating him really for all that others have said that he has not disclaimed, because, of course, he's not around to disclaim it. And I got in this imaginary relationship, and I was sort of doing like my best detective interrogation. So there I am with a bright light in his face, sort of taunting him that the real reason that his parables are so confusing is because he doesn't really know what he's talking about. And I could see myself starting to badger him about why he never said it's okay to be gay, or drop a line advocating that women's control over their bodies trumped the rights of the fetuses in the tiniest stages of development, which I think he would. Maybe the pastor should shut off his phone too. Oh, it's Jesus. Hi. How are you? Listen, thanks for getting back. Yeah. I think I should take this. No, I know you're busy. Yep, right. Yeah, odd timing, I would say, because I'm here. It's miraculous, some might say, talking about you. Yeah, I'm in the middle of preaching a sermon about you. Well, you know that, yep. I know I'm not the only one today, yep, right. Of course this is off the record. Yep, I know you're a little leery of being misquoted, right? Yep, we're the pretty church with the glass. Yep, that's right. Right, you're good. It's good. I got a few questions. The kids wanted to know what happened to the dinosaurs. A meteorite. Okay, right, that's what we suspected. Was that all part of a bigger plan? No, I'm not kidding. Okay, forget about the dinosaurs. Let's get into the Garden of Eden. Maybe more specifically, I'd like to know if you would go on the record saying something about evolution, maybe. Maybe you could come out publicly, suggest, like in an addendum to the Bible, something about human origins going back 5 or 6 million years, not the 6,000. No, I get you never said anything about that. Jesus, I guess in a way that's kind of my point. Nope, I understood you spoke in parables for a reason. Yep, sorry about the little earlier slur. Yep. Look, I just think in hindsight it might have been helpful if you could, maybe talk about more practical stuff than about stories of virgins and mustard seeds. Nope, I got nothing against mustard. Nope, virgins fine too. Yep. Yep, again, yep, frequently misquoted. Yep, we do have 2,000 years of advantage technologically and otherwise. Gotcha. Okay, what about Paul on the road to Damascus? Was that you? You got another call. It's from Rome. I think you better take that Rome call. Hey, listen, don't be a stranger. I know you're way overdue for a visit back down. You promised you were. He hung up. Despite all you hear, he's pretty hard to reach. So I've lost my zest for interrogation. When one reads about Jesus, what he did seemed to push for that he seemed to be kind of trapped in his context of his time. So in the spirit, let's claim that truth, that Jesus is a product of his time. I know that's heresy pretty much everywhere except for here. So as we attempt to crawl back through the impossibly layered curtain of sort of uncertainty to the land and mind and heart of first century Palestine, the first instinct one must bring is an open-eyed skepticism to whatever he said being true to what that he said that or did that. Anytime you see a TV preacher or evangelist spouting on about Jesus' hidden message in a parable, stop and throw, as the kids say, a little shade on that uncertainty. None of the Gospels were written by people who ever met Jesus. My notes say read that twice. The names of the Gospels, essentially the titles, are accounts written of respectable people in their names. To be sure, there were a few eyewitness accounts of people who said they saw the risen Christ, and we certainly do know that a number of his followers, a significant number of his followers, who were running away at the time he was crucified, did turn around and die in his name. That is the most impressive part of the entire story. Eventually, they got killed for their faith. That should not be lost on the skeptics among us, that happened. Something happened there. And the biblical accounts of Jesus were stuck with literally some of what Jesus did or said, certainly others speaking for him, and we never know how to separate out those two things. Never will. At each turn of the page, at each quote, at each phrase or action, we could say easily that that's not Jesus, that's the gospel writer, or that's tradition speaking, or that is Jesus. Everything about that is something of a guess. That's a fact. We do, of course, have the Gospels, as James Robinson states. I like this phrasing. The Gospels are theological treatises that assume the form of historical biographies. That's a pretty good description. These Gospels were written with particular audiences in mind, and it might be helpful to remember that the communities of Christians formed before the idea that there were sacred scriptures, and certainly before the Gospels were written. So Jesus had followers almost immediately out of the gate. But standing 2,000 years back, taking the best Jesus we can discern, we have to admit the momentum and commitments of our itinerant friend seem to run into conflict with others who made him a cosmic character. When we look back with fresh sets of eyes as we can, or as a fresh set of eyes as we can, we see what Jesus gets wrong is understandable and actually amazingly obvious in many cases. Jesus appears to get wrong that a profoundly heavenly rule he refers to as the kingdom was just around the corner on earth. He talks about it all the time. Jesus, following the images and phrasing of John the Baptist, who is his most significant mentor, speaks of this profound benign change in leadership that is coming. A coming kingdom, we're told, is obvious for those who have the eyes or ears to hear or see it. However, for those who don't, he says the message is like a mustard seed hidden in the weeds. All very poetic, all very wrong. The idea of change is, as we know from a number of apocalyptic thinkers at the time, something that occurs in every generation, ours included, is always in the air, and Jesus was not in a way tempered by the kind of reason and long perspective we get out of history. He was flawed in his thinking because he didn't have that perspective that we now have with the historical record before us. Jesus gets wrong, not that his band of traveling healers and odd collection of, followers would change the future. They obviously did. I'm talking about him now for that reason. Jesus' followers have remarkably changed the future. The Jesus we inherit as largely interpreted by Paul actually makes him perhaps the most important human being in history. So Jesus gets sort of it right. However, he gets wrong, radically, almost comically, tragically wrong, that they would change the world by ushering in a new kingdom of love. For anyone who's read the Gospels that Jesus gets most obviously wrong, the kingdom never comes. There never was an emergence of a radically different social order led by the poor, was there? The question is simple. Ask yourself. Ask a Christian. Does your understanding of history tell you about a significant period of time following Jesus' time that would be definable as a period of peace and prosperity that undermined the status quo and brought God's visible reign on earth? No. Sadly, no, is the answer to that. No avenging God or profound revolution topples civilization and ushers in a profoundly new era of human nature. Jesus did change the world. I don't know if it's more insulting or respectful for the Roman Empire to take the man they killed 3 centuries before to be their religious centerpiece, but Jesus is famous because of that. That odd twist of history and fate is exactly why we talk about Jesus today. To add insult to injury, the Roman Empire adopted another man they killed, I'm speaking about Peter, to build the church off of, and nearly founded the centerpiece of their whole religion on the very capital spot where they crucified him. That's an odd coming of the kingdom. It is in the end, quite ironically, the powers and principalities that was such an underlying source of Jesus' trouble for this itinerant preacher of ours that carried him forward. Once you take off the reinterpretive glasses that we're sort of asked to walk around with, we realize that we've been handed from church apologetics a weird irony that never gets discussed. What we get wrong is that the other side of the coin is so difficult to say creatively. We get seduced because we want it to be true that a person who was alive at this moment exactly 2,000 years ago can better solve the problem of our era than we can. I think if Jesus had ever come back, as he promised he would be disappointed in us. In Jesus, we commit the very understandable original sin of seeking salvation outside of ourselves and outside the moral complications of here and now. We commit the sin of believing that a person 2,000 years ago controls the fate of the future more than we do. Don't you wish it was true, though? It'd be great if it was. It's tempting. How responsible should Jesus be for leading us to believe that he is whispering in the ear of world leaders 2 millennia later? Or for the experience of his followers seeing his image in clouds and in cookies? How responsible is he for that? It's hard to say. I would think very little. I would call us more responsible for that illusion than him. Jesus probably saw himself as special. You can imagine him running around in the full bloom of all the attention he was getting. Maybe he wasn't alive. Maybe he even dropped enough vague hints to get humans to officially suggest that he was divine. It would have been in the water, so to speak. We will never know how much that's him and how much that's others. But clearly, if Jesus had the cosmic perspective that the church told us he had, wouldn't he have straightened us out? Wouldn't it have been helpful to hear that ours is a 13 billion year plus universe? Wouldn't someone with the scope and power he was given being there as a co-creator of the universe say more? Of course they would. And yet Jesus gives us no heads up on the coming moral issues like cloning or how to cure cancer, or seem to even drop hints that there are 2 massive continents to the left of Jerusalem, about 5,000 miles, that we're going to eventually discover. Or that we should be forewarned about Hitler or Putin. I mean, quite frankly, had Jesus been the co-creator of the universe who came to do God's work, wouldn't he have said something about germs or DNA? Of course he would. No instinct. He delivers instead demons haunting a person into a pack of pigs and sends them into the river to drown. A first century dude. Jesus gets a lot wrong. Of course he does. He's the ultimate period piece. They hadn't even invented the button yet. He promised, didn't he, that he would return before the generation of his peers had passed, and he doesn't. And while I'm on my roll, isn't the promise that God is watching over us so diligently that he all but accounts for every hair on our head, isn't that a little bit misleading to the way we live our lives with the fears and health concerns we all share? Religiously poetic, but very misleading. I only say it because I love him, actually. It remains unclear how indictable Jesus is for all that we say about him, where he was misquoted or whatever. But I think that we get Jesus wrong because at least we get so much right from him about how to live bravely and compassionately and indignantly that we get a little dreamy and seduced by the rest. That's not a terrible thing. We need heroes. See, it seems that the level of existence, the level of spiritual evolution and awareness that we as fragile creatures just have, it's literally beyond our capacities to apprehend the ultimate in a direct way. I feel that way. I suspect you do too. Perhaps except in rare sort of flashes of intuition, tuning into the divine requires sort of symbols and stories and rituals and acts to keep yourself in that space. Jesus is a good one to help you do that. So reject the perfection and the halos that we've handed him. Go for it. But don't hesitate to sink yourself into the story every now and again. Invite him as a courageous friend. Invite him to sit at your sort of table of spiritual heroes and heroines who you listen to. Make him, if not your Messiah, your patron saint of living outside of false boundaries, of living bravely with no assurance of victory, and as a figure who faced death and all its uncertainty and tragedy without giving up on the world. I'm sure he'd love to have you at that table. Sure, he's a first century guy. Sure, if you're a woman, you might despite his high emotional quotient, still expect you to cook. But if we know anything, unless you're a snotty prima donna, he probably wants to talk to you, and from the record seems to even occasionally slow down enough to listen. I encourage you to forgive Jesus for what he gets wrong. Rumor has it he'd do the same for you. Amen.
And he wasn't blonde and blue-eyed.
That's right.
It was Palm Sunday, but because of a sore throat, 5-year-old Sammy stayed home from church with the babysitter. When the family returned home, they were carrying several palm fronds. Sammy inquired as to what they were for. People held them over Jesus' head as he walked by, his father responded. Wouldn't you know it, Sammy complained. The one Sunday I don't go and he shows up. Please give generously.
This is the other half of the piece that I started earlier.
Closing hymn is 170. We are an angry, gentle people.
gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our life. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our life. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
So you better sing good.
This-
And you did.
This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences, beneath all our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us together forever, in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. We pause in silent witness to that unity.
May the blessing of love be upon you. May love's peace abide with you. May love's presence illuminate your hearts now and forevermore. So be it. Amen, shalom, salam, namaste, and blessed be. And now our service truly begins. Oh, the interim search committee, I forgot to announce that. We're going to have a meeting about interim ministry search stuff. Gary's going to lead that.
It's just if you have questions or want to give us feedback. We have published our record. We will be hearing from ministers who are interested in us May 2nd, I think. So if you've got feedback for us of what we're looking for, I'll be able to reply.
Coffee too, yeah. On the back of the bulletin, I falsely, I'm sorry. On the back of the bulletin, I falsely advertised that we're invited to the brunch but that's just really kind of optimistic. But we're getting there. We're almost there. We're almost there.